Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-application webinar for the Tribal Institutional Review Board Establishment and Enhancement Grant Program, also known as TIRBEE. My name is Crystal Richards. I'm a program officer at NIGMS in the Division for Capacity Building, and I am in the Health Research and Development Programs branch. Today, our webinar will be attended by NIGMS staff, including Michelle McGurl, Acting Director of the Division for Research Capacity Building, Aaron Iturriaga, the Chief of the Health Research and Development Programs Branch, myself, Robert Altieri, and Christy Leek from the Grants Administration Branch. As we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat window, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. The slides and webinar recording will be posted after the fact on the NARCH website. And if you have any specific questions related to TIRBEE, please send an email to me, Crystal, at crystal.richards@nih.gov. TIRBEE was developed to address a specific recommendations received through a formal tribal consultation process. NIGMS is home to one of the largest Native American grant programs offered by the U.S. government, known as the Native American Research Centers for Health. In 2021, NIGMS conducted an evaluation and formal tribal consultation in conjunction with the Tribal Health Research Office. The purpose of this consultation and evaluation process was to solicit input and feedback from tribal leaders, tribal nations, and tribal organizations about the NARCH program. Specific feedback received under this process included the following: ensuring that both research projects and research infrastructure supported under NARCH are primarily conducted by tribal nations and communities rather than traditional academic institutions or partners. In addition, NIGMS identified the need for the development of research capacity and infrastructure to support research in tribal communities. You can read the full tribal consultation report and the NIGMS response in the link on the slide. So to address the outcomes of the tribal consultation, the TIRBEE Award was developed. The purpose of the TIRBEE Award is to support federally recognized American Indian and Alaska Native tribes, tribal colleges and universities, tribal health programs, or tribal organizations collectively known as eligible tribal entities to establish tribal institutional review boards or enhance the capacity of existing tribal IRBs. Now, IRBs are the institutional body that review, approve, and monitor research involving human subjects. The timeline for the TIRBEE grant process is indicated here in this table. The due date for TIRBEE is January 27th, and the applications will be reviewed in July of that year. Applications will be reviewed by the NIGMS Council in October of 2025, and the earliest start date for an award would be December of that year, of the application year. To be eligible for TIRBEE, the applicant organization must meet one of the following criteria. It must be a federally recognized tribe, a tribal college or university, a tribal health program, or a tribal organization or government. A consortium of 2 or more tribal entities is allowed as long as all meet eligibility requirements. Eligible individuals must have a primary appointment with the applicant organization. PIs with special employment or arrangements such as interorganizational personnel agreements among federally recognized AIAN tribes are allowable. Multi-PI applications are also allowed. All MPIs must be from eligible tribal entities. Non-contact PIs must also have a primary appointment at an eligible tribal entity. Partners who are not PIs are allowed. They can be NARCH awardees, other tribal entities, or non-tribal entities. The TIRBEE award budget allows for a maximum of $350,000 per year in direct costs for up to 5 years. For applications that include partner organizations that are not tribal entities, the direct cost of subcontracts to these organizations combined must be 25% or less of the application's overall direct cost budget. A TIRBEE grant is not renewable. If a TIRBEE application is unsuccessful the first time, resubmission is allowed. Supported activities for the TIRBEE award may include, but are not limited to, recruiting staff, including consultants and mentors as needed, establishing policies and procedures for day-to-day IRB operations, such as billing, securing data, and records management, which may include the use of electronic submission software. Activities may include developing communication and information systems such as websites, administrative systems, and databases. It may also provide equipment and software that are needed to implement protocol review and track ongoing IRB-related activities. The award should aid in establishing best practices for providing IRB oversight and support throughout the life cycles of research projects involving human subjects. In addition, TIRBEE can provide or support competency-based training, coursework, conference attendance, and related activities for IRB administrators and tribal members to prepare them to serve on IRBs. This is not an exhaustive list of activities, but gives an idea of some of the activities that could be put into a TIRBEE application. The submitting organization must complete required registrations in advance, including SAM.gov, ERA Commons, and grants.gov. We recommend completing these registrations 4 to 6 weeks in advance, as they can sometimes take a long time to complete. We also require a letter of support from the applicant organization that is signed by an authorized senior organizational official from the applicant tribal entity, such as a tribal council leader or president of a tribal college or university. Data management and sharing plans are not required for this NOFO. To read the full application requirements, please see the SF 424 application guide for more details. Included in the application, a project summary or abstract should have no more than 30 lines of text. Project narrative should have 3 sentences. Specific aims should be 1 page, and the research strategy 12 pages. The research strategy, although it's not a research grant per se, however, that is the form that the SF 424 would have us title it, that strategy should outline the objectives and approaches for IRB workforce and infrastructure development. Please include the following categories and headings in the research strategy: program description, regulatory competencies plan, IRB development plan, and sustainability plan. Now we will go through each one of those sections in more detail. Include in the research strategy program description. This will describe the goals of the application. Is it IRB establishment or enhancement in the context of currently available IRB related resources and participation in existing IRBs? In this section, please describe the following: the organization's current IRB capability and any existing partnerships or collaborations with other organizations. include an overview of plans to build IRB capacity and accomplish the specific aims. The relationship of the proposed IRB activities to the administrative structure of the applicant organization and the tribal community or communities it serves. Include the roles and contributions of members of a tribal consortium if proposed, and any additional partners that will be involved in building IRB capacity. In addition, provide a plan for regular evaluation of IRB-related activities. This section will give us an overview of your plans. Institutional review boards are required to adhere to a number of regulations around human subjects research. As such, please describe plans for providing culturally appropriate and federally required education and training to individuals administering and coordinating an IRB and/or those who will participate in IRB review. The regulatory competencies plan should describe the following: plans for recruiting tribal members interested in serving as IRB members, plans for outreach to receive community input, proposed IRB courses with names of vendors and providers, anticipated certifications resulting from formal coursework, and the modes of delivery, online, in person, etc. Describe the development and/or implementation of additional activities to enhance and maintain IRB member and staff knowledge of federal, institutional, and tribal human subjects research regulatory policies. In this section, provide a plan for training and formally onboarding trained tribal members into a newly established or enhanced tribal IRB. Please provide a plan to track the progress of individuals for completing required or optional coursework, maintaining any certifications required for their IRB roles, and their participation in IRB reviews. The third section is the IRB development plan. This describes the overall developmental strategy, operational plan, and organizational structure of the IRB. In this section, please describe the proposed IRB structures and its workflows, currently available and proposed development of resources to support electronic information handling and secure management of data, recruitment of IRB leadership, and members with appropriate skills and knowledge. If establishing a new IRB, please include plans for registering with the NIH Office of Human Research Protections, as well as documenting IRB user federal-wide assurances. Overall feasibility for establishing or enhancing the tribal IRB during the planning, implementation, and sustainability phases should be included. And finally, the fourth section should include a sustainability plan. A primary goal of the TIRBEE program is to develop and support sustainable IRB research infrastructure in tribal communities. In this section, please describe the following: address the need for continued competency training for IRB members and staff, strategies for providing longer-term support for IRB activities, including plans to maintain IRB capacity beyond TIRBEE funding, a contingency plan in the event key personnel cannot continue in their roles, a plan for filling IRB member and administrative staff vacancies, contingencies to meet anticipated future IRB needs due to growth of human subjects research, describe plans to maintain improvements to IRB capacity beyond TIRBEE funding. Okay, and so those are the basic components that will need to be in the application. Once the application is submitted, it will undergo both administrative and scientific review. Administrative review is conducted by NIGMS program officers, and scientific review is conducted by the NIGMS Scientific Review Branch. All applications deemed non-compliant, non-responsive, or ineligible will be withdrawn. To avoid this, please read and follow the NOFO instructions. Please read carefully and follow the NOFO instructions. Make sure all PIs and submitting organizations are eligible, and please apply a few days prior to the deadline. Check your applications and make corrections if needed. It's very important to apply early, as sometimes there can be technical issues with ERA Commons and other systems that prevent your application being submitted. So it's always good to start early with this process. Scientific review, as I said, will be conducted by the NIGMS Scientific Review Board. And the process for scientific review is as followed. Assigned reviewers will provide preliminary scores before the meeting starts, with the lower number being the best score and the higher number being the worst score. 1 is the best possible score and 9 the worst possible score. At the meeting, reviewers will describe strengths and weaknesses of the application and provide written critiques according to the review criteria. All reviewers then discuss the application. Panel members then vote on the application and provide their individual impact scores. The scores are averaged and multiplied by 10 to give the final overall impact or priority score, which will be available within a few days of the review meeting. So if you receive a score of 10, you know you received the best possible score. And if you received a score of 90, received the worst possible score. Summary statements are available approximately 30 days later and will provide more details on the perceived strengths and weaknesses of the application. Our advice to applicants is to really read the entire NOFO very carefully. Please pay extra attention to Section 5. These are the review criteria. Reviewers critique these particular criteria and questions in their summary statements. In addition, you may use the PHS assignment form to indicate expertise needed, but do not suggest reviewer names. You may provide names of those who should not review your application. So who do I contact and when? Before submission and after the summary statement is released, contact your program officer. In this case, this would be myself, Crystal Richards. After submission and before the review meeting, please contact the Scientific Review Officer, or SRO, assigned to your application. And with that, we will end and proceed to the Q&A. Thank you very much for your attention. Please type your questions into the chat box and we will answer them one by one. I appreciate your attendance and thank you very much.
Hi, it looks like we already have one question in the chat, and it says, will the slides be sent out to the people, tribes on the call? The answer is the slides will be posted to the NIGMS NARCH homepage, and there is a link in the chat.
If anyone has a question that's more involved than that they feel like they can't type it all out, you feel free to unmute and turn your camera on, and we will do our best to answer.
There's another question in the chat. The NOFO indicates eligibility for local governments, Indian, Native American tribal governments, federally recognized, and Indian, Native American tribal governments other than federally recognized. Under what circumstances can an other than federally recognized tribe apply, if any? Crystal, would you like to take this question?
Yes, that's a great question. There are a few cases where there are state recognized tribal governments and tribes. And so in that case, if it's recognized by your state, it is eligible. They are eligible, the groups.
Okay, another question. Is the next review date of applications due by December 27th, 2024, CRFA?
No. So the due date is January 27th of next year, 2025. So about 3 months from now. And it will be reviewed in July of 2025.
Okay, another question. Are tribal epicenters and tribal health boards eligible?
So this is a complicated question, and it would, we would have to probably discuss that offline. If you are in one of those groups or wanting to apply on behalf of one of those groups, please send me an email and I will have to then probably dig in a little bit and do some background research to make sure your specific organization is or is not eligible. Long story short, it depends. It depends. So sorry, that's a government-y answer, but please email me. It's Crystal, Crystal .Richard@nih.gov, and I will be happy to quickly check and find the answer for your specific organization.
Can you put your email in the chat?
Yes, I can. That's a great idea. And anything that comes up after this webinar, I am happy to answer questions, meet with you one-on-one. We can go through the NOFO in great detail together if you'd like. I'm so excited about this program and want to make sure that the application process is smooth for everyone. And so I'm willing to take as much time as we all need to meet and talk and get it done. So don't hesitate to email me.
Yes, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I'm the one that asked about the epicenters and the health boards. The only reason I ask about, I'm not either one of those. I'm with the tribe, the Chickasaw Nation in Ada, Oklahoma. It's a competitive grant, right? It's a competitive opportunity. So I was just wondering if epicenters and health boards are allowed to apply, then that increases the competition, right? It makes it more competitive. So that's why I was curious as to whether or not those particular types of organizations were eligible. So, but I understand it's very complicated.
So in general, the techs, the tribal epidemiology centers are not eligible in general. However, if you are with one of those organizations, please email me and I will double check. But we have done some looking into that and have found that in general they are not. However, some tribal health boards might be. So I would like on a case-by-case basis need to look at that and probably ask my division director
Okay.
about that.
That's fair enough. I'm just trying to keep the competition down.
I hear you.
And the next question is, are there a lot of tribal IRBs already existing in the US or Alaska?
That is a great question. I don't know the exact number. However, I do not believe there are a lot. No, I do know there are some already existing. I don't have a list of that. If anyone knows of them and wants to send me a list, that would be great. But I do know that there are a handful for sure out there. So you could potentially work together to get training or mentorship to build a new one. So there are some folks out there doing this work for sure. Oh, yes, Bobby.
You can go to the IHS website and they have a list of all the, well, I don't know how current it is, but they have a list of the tribal IRBs on there. I'm trying to pull it up, but of course I can't find it at the moment, right? So, but
Okay.
the IHS IRB, the national IRB, IHS keeps a list of all the tribal IRBs that have that are federally recognized IRBs, right? Because there are other tribes that have similar type of review committees, but are not, registered as IRBs. So
it looks like Angie put the link in the chat.
Thank you, Angie. That's fantastic. I didn't know this existed. I think this is a great resource for everybody. Mentorship and consultants in this process is probably going to be very valuable. So this list that Angie posted in the chat is a great resource. I'll be bookmarking that myself. Thank you, Angie. I will want to emphasize that this program is aimed at developing a brand new IRB or really helping to support an already existing IRB that might need, some training or, whatever the particular situation is. So it doesn't have to be a new IRB. That's one question I've received recently, and just wanted to emphasize you can be growing an IRB or building one up, and that's perfectly valid. That's the enhancement part of TIRBEE. So, and Dr. Lauren put in an article for us. Thank you very much. This is a great group. You guys are awesome. Thank you for putting that in.
It says there are several IRBs not listed on the IHS site. And we suspected maybe it's not, as up to date as of today, but at least it's a really good start to, as Crystal said, to maybe find resources.
Okay. Yes, Bobby says it's not up to date at all. So keep that with the caveat in mind.
If anyone has a final question, please unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll turn it back over to Crystal.
I see a question. I'll read it, Aaron, since I was already talking. Could an entity like NIGMS be a database holder of tribal IRBs? Are you, Amy, are you referring to the documents that a tribal IRB would use during the course of its work, or are you talking about a list like the IHS list? Oh, a searchable place to find tribal IRBs. I'm not sure, Aaron. What do you think on that?
Well, for sure, we would have a list of IRBs that we fund. So that's a no-brainer, and that could also be posted to our website. Other IRBs, I think it would be difficult for us to maintain, and maybe similar to the IHS site, it would get out of date. But I know the ones that we fund, we could definitely keep posted.
Any other questions? I'm not in a hurry, so if you're thinking and you have a question forming, don't hesitate.
For future funding, would creating a learning community be an option?
I think that could certainly be a part of your plan. I think one of the hurdles with human subjects research is sort of getting community invested and community education and outreach. And so if that is something you wanted to build into your plan, so that the community that you're serving, your IRB would be serving, gains more knowledge about human subjects research and is involved in the process, I think that is a perfectly good idea and is allowable in TIRBEE.
Angie has her hand raised. You want to go ahead and go off mute, Angie?
Hi, my name's Angie Sam. I'm from South Dakota, Oglala Sioux Tribe, and we currently have a tribal institutional review board. My question is the way that we kind of have like a hybrid institutional review board in that it's a combination of a community advisory board and also an institutional review board. So we really look at trying to encourage the researchers to make it fit our community, our reservation. So one of the challenges that we experience is that, I guess, how do we, or the goal of this is to increase the what is it? improve developing these institutional review boards in tribal communities. But those needs may be a little bit different than what a traditional IRB looks like. Being able to modify that to meet our individual community needs, is that appropriate? And how does that relate in regards to like the FWA? Do we have to be an FWA for this?
Yes. So the FWA is mandatory. Federal-wide assurance registration is mandatory. Although that is not my expertise, so that is literally all I know about it. But I could find more information about it. If you have questions about how to do that, we could find more information about that for you. In terms of your hybrid IRB, I expect that groups like this, tribal IRBs, would have multiple activities that they could work on, like, like you're describing, research review board kind of activities, where looking looking at research overall, not just the human subjects protections. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, Erin, but I think that is perfectly fine as long as the application really addresses all of the components that I outlined today. And we're really concerned that human subjects, any kind of research that involves humans, whether it be a clinical trial or surveys or anything really, that an IRB would oversee, that part of the overall organization or group is well delineated, so that we know that you guys are having a quality experience with your IRB, and your human subjects involved in research are protected as mandated by federal regulation. So it's totally fine if your group does other activities, and you can outline that, but really emphasize the human subjects part that that is in the NOFO. But yes, it is also okay if those folks are doing other activities, right, Erin?
Right. So also you may want to think more broadly in terms of developing an IRB that would serve more than one community. Also looking at a sustainability plan, that a lot of what maybe you describe is part of the sustainability plan as well. So, when you think about an IRB, there are many, many components. If you have one research study, it's the initial consultation. Is this expedited review, or does it require a full board review? And then there's always the review meeting. And then as the study goes on, you have to report maybe annually, submit adverse events, and then close out. So there's many, many components to the IRB to keep in mind as well. And so to keep the IRB active and ongoing, you probably need to have oversight of several studies over time, and to show how you would become sustainable working with different groups and reviewing their research versus having to get a private, IRB, which can be very expensive to do the research. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes.
There's a couple of comments and also a question in the chat now. Let me see. The comment is, a community of TIRBEE grantees might be useful, so existing tribal IRBs could share resources and experience with new IRBs. I think that's a great suggestion as well. So, Crystal, does the IRB have to be registered with NIH?
No, but it is HHS. So I'm going to put the link in the chat, because the next question is, what is the expectation given the grant timeline to become FWA? And so I'm putting in the chat the link to the HHS place where you can see how to file a new federal-wide assurance. I don't think it's overly cumbersome or time consuming. And I will say, as long as you have plans to do this in your application, it does not need to be done at the time you apply. It just needs to be something that your IRB gets done hopefully early on in its development, but it doesn't have to be done the day you apply.
I think there's a hand up.
Okay, yep.
Do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, thanks. Just clarifying my previous question. So if in your grant application, you're establishing an IRB and you say you will be FWA, what is the expectation? Because in a lot of communities, they are just beginning to have these discussions and it may not be time yet to file the FWA paperwork. So what is the expectation from this funding mechanism that the established IRBs will have federal assurance by the end of the funding timeline?
So that is a really great question, and I'm glad you asked it because our goal is to build research capacity, but that is going to proceed at everyone's going to be on their own sort of timeline for that. And so as long as you outline the activities that your community needs to move forward, as long as you outline those in the application, and you know, it might be that the first 5 years of your TIRBEE award is meeting with community, doing some outreach, getting organized, you know, getting all the plans together, and it might only be the last year of the first round that you actually have the, you know, the capability to start looking at human subjects documents. So we tried not to be very prescriptive about sort of how you do it, because we know everyone is going to have kind of a different timeline and a different way of implementing these ideas. So I think that's actually pretty flexible. But we need the FWA in place when you are reviewing human subjects documents. That is really where and when it needs to be in place. But you know, the timeline for how your program develops is really going to be individual, because we know that it can just take a long time to get these things done, start getting people trained and all of that stuff. And we know that's going to take time. And so we're not expecting everyone to just have an IRB year one, right? We know that's going to take time. So I think that, as you know, just to be in compliance with federal regulations, want to get the FWA by the time you're reviewing the research. Yes, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so do you mean we need it as in the federal government, or we need it as in future funding applications through NIG, this institute? I'm just confused on who you mean by we.
We meaning the federal government. From my understanding, is federal-wide assurance is required before you can review human subjects research. Is that right, Erin?
Yes. So
Okay.
even aside from this, when people are proposing clinical trials, we have to assure, meaning we, not the royal we, but the federal government requires that the IRB has a FWA. So it can't just be a put together group of people. There has to be more to it than that, according to the link that was posted. So I hope that helps. But that's really for any clinical trials that are reviewed by any IRB. The IRB needs that FWA.
Thank you for your comment, Lauren. We will take your suggestion and do some reading on this topic, because FWAs are not my expertise at all. So I will read some more on this. And if you'd like to talk more later, you know, feel free to email me and we can have a longer discussion about, you know, your plans and your organization or community's plans.
Okay, there's a question about direct cost. Just to clarify, annual direct cost must not exceed 350K, excluding consortium facilities and administrative cost. Does this mean that indirect costs are not included in the 350K max? Crystal, would you like to answer this?
I am not sure. Is this a question for Robert? Maybe in our grants administration branch?
Yeah, I can take that. So the 350K direct cost limit applies only to direct costs. So that means that if you have subawards and those subawards have their own indirect costs, those are not counted towards the cap. So that's why theoretically it's possible to exceed $350,000 direct costs if you have a subaward and those subaward indirect costs don't count against the cap. Now, as far as indirect costs to the parent grant, those are completely separate. The limitation is only on direct costs. So hopefully that answers that question.
And if anyone has any questions regarding budget while, before you submit an application, please feel free to reach out.
It's great questions.
Angie just wrote a comment. If the grantee does not have an existing FWA, pay attention to checking the box on the FWA. Hey, another comment. When an institution checks the box on their FWA, they are voluntarily electing to apply the common rule to all non-exempt human subject research conducted at their institution, regardless of the funding source.
Thank you for that information. That's fantastic. Yes. I can put a link to the common rule in the chat as well for those who are not familiar. So this is a link to the common rule that describes kind of the current regulations around protecting human subjects in research. Well, it seems like we've slowed way down. Oh, we've got Bobby back.
I just had a comment, and I may hopefully not misspeaking, but to my understanding, you have to have an FWA to conduct research, federally funded research, right? So, but I don't think an IRB has to have an FWA, itself. I think that has to be linked. If an institution is going to conduct federally funded research, they have to have an FWA that has to be linked to an IRB, but it doesn't have to be an IRB at their own institution, right? It could be linked to another IRB. So to actually conduct the research, you must have an FWA, but I don't know that, to have a registered IRB requires that you have an FWA. I mean, it makes sense that you would, but I think they're linked, but they're also kind of separate.
I see what you're saying. So the IRB is a component of an institution's FWA. Is that what you're saying? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Not necessarily, because I know when we first started, we had FWA because we were conducting research, but we did not have an IRB, so we linked with an IRB of another institution.
And they had.
And they had, yeah, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Amy has another question. Will you hold another webinar if we can share that with others who might not have seen today's date?
We won't have another live one, but we will. This one is being recorded, and we will post it to the NIGMS website, and so it could be viewable, and we should have it posted fairly quickly within a week or two, and that will be available for anyone to watch. And in addition, I'm available to schedule one-on-one meetings if you know of someone who would like to just talk about it, look at the NOFO together. That's totally fine. Just email me and we'll set up a time. Otherwise, just look at the recording and the slides on it's NAGMS NARCH homepage. Here, I'll put it in the chat for us. that has information about NARCH, but it also has information about TIRBEE if you go to the bottom. So, okay, the question is, so would you clarify the IRB registration, trying to figure out if we do or don't need to register with HHS? So now I'm going to turn it to you, Erin.
I think this starts to become an individual question that may be better answered through an email and or setting up a call, just to figure out what are the components of your organization, and that would help us to be able to clarify this. So Andrea, if you don't mind, maybe just emailing it, and then you'll have it in writing as well.
And Bobby put in a great comment about FWAs. So I will read it to everyone. An institution must have an FWA in order to receive HHS support for research involving human subjects. Each FWA must designate at least one IRB registered with the Office of Human Research Protection. Before obtaining an IRB, an institution must either register, I may have misspoken. Before obtaining an FWA, an institution must either register its own IRB, an internal IRB, or designate an already registered IRB operated by another organization after establishing a written agreement with that other organization. So you have to have the FWA in order to receive funding support from HHS, which is our parent organization here. Or if you are not trying to do research yourself, but you are trying to set up an IRB or enhance one, then you should have the FWA for your IRB. So depending on how you're set up at your institution. Thank you for putting that in, Bobby. You're amazing. Thank you so much.
That's from the OHRP website, so, but again, as Lauren mentions, tribal IRBs don't have to necessarily register with the federal government. That they can have their own in tribal IRB without being federally registered as an IRB. So it gets complicated, so I'll be quiet now.
No, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. And that is, this is a brand new grant program, and we're still learning about the ins and outs of developing IRBs ourselves. So thank you for that clarification. And also, Lauren, thank you again. We will read up on the federal wide assurances. And if anyone has any concerns as they're working on their application, please just reach out and we can have a discussion, an individual discussion about concerns and how you're planning to move forward.
Okay, so there haven't been any new questions. We'll give one more time. If anybody has one last remaining question, please unmute yourself at this time.
You are very welcome, Amy, and to everyone. I really hope that everyone who wants to applies to TIRBEE. And also, please reach out. We are here to help and to support. And so we'll do our best to make this process as least painful as possible for you if we can. So thank you all so much for attending. And we look forward to the application season. Due date is January 27th, everybody. Hope you all have a wonderful day.